OJ. We still have him for a little bit more. For a bit more. Oof. Okay, let's just get through it. Let's get through it. Press play.
Just a couple of questions, if I might, Your Honor, on this. All of these controls were used by the Los Angeles Police Department in this case, correct?
Yes, they were.
Those controls were used by Cellmark in this case?
Yes.
Those controls were used by the Department of Justice in this case?
Yes.
And in fact, the Department of Justice uses an additional control, what's referred to, and I believe you described it yesterday, their QC sample, correct?
Yes.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our first afternoon break at this time. Please remember all my admonitions to you. We'll stand in recess for 15.
And in particular, with regard to cross-hybridization, that can be characterized, can it not, as the appearance of additional alleles because of the closeness in sequence of one to the other. Is that a fair definition?
Yes, it frequently occurs in the presence of higher levels of DNA.
Now, you prepared a report in this matter. Is that correct?
I did.
And is it correct that in that report you have described the fact that additional alleles can appear weaker than alleles from the sample itself when, for instance, the temperature of this process of the typing strips showing these dots isn't correct?
That's correct. If either the temperature or the salt concentration is incorrectly, the protocol is incorrectly followed, that would be an explanation
In other
for
words,
weak dots.
the temperature could be off during this process and you might see a weak dot. Is that right?
Correct.
Or how much salt is in the solution that this development process goes on in, that could also result in a weaker dot.
It might. I have to clarify that. It would result in a weaker dot on a sample from a known individual. It would not. There's no way it could result in a weak dot on a no DNA control, such as the amplification blank or the reagent blank or a substrate control, where there's not supposed to be any DNA in the first place. It could not result in a dot there.
In other words, when we put that chart up there of controls, if that were a reagent blank, also called a cloth control, and you saw a weak signal on one of those dots, that's not from cross-hybridization, correct?
No, it cannot be.
But on, for instance, a known sample from a person, like the positive control that we described there, that could be the subject to these additional dots showing if, for instance, the temperature were off or the salt solution were off.
In that case, it would be one possible explanation.
Now, as far as the differences between these alleles, and let's use DQ alpha. There's a 1.1 allele, is that right?
Correct.
And a 1.2?
I'm thinking they had to have accidentally put a spicy Dorito in my bag. Because that Dorito,
Correct.
And a 1.3?
Correct.
And then there are three others that are called 2, 3, and 4 on the typing strip.
That's correct.
As far as the 1.1 allele, it's very close in terms of its DNA sequence to the 1.2 allele. Is that right?
Yes.
And in fact, there's only one little piece of DNA information, a base pair difference, between the 1.1 and the 1.2, correct?
Correct.
It's that similarity in closeness that can lead to the appearance of these additional weaker dots if a sample is, say, a 1.3 and you see a 1.1 showing up weakly.
Well, specifically in the case of the 1.1, that's not really the reason that's been described for that particular allele.
Well,
that particular allele is a second gene that has close sequences, the DX gene.
Okay, we'll return to that. But the 1.1 and the 1.2 only differ by one base pair, correct?
Correct.
And a 1.2 type can also show, simply because of this one base pair difference, show some weaker reaction in the 1.1, correct?
If the reaction and the protocol are correctly followed, this system is capable of detecting a one base pair difference. It's only when you have larger amounts of DNA that you have a minor percentage of that kind of cross because of the one base pair mixing. Then you would see it.
Isn't it true that this cross-hybridization, due to this one base pair difference between a 1.1 and a 1.2, can appear even if large amounts of DNA are not involved?
The literature that I have read suggests that at 6 nanograms and above is where the problem is evident.
Is it your testimony that unless there's 6 nanograms, this cross-hybridization between a 1.1 and a 1.2 can't happen?
It's less likely to happen.
In other words, it can happen.
It's possible, but it's not the more likely explanation when the DNA concentration is low.
Now, the 1.1 and the 1.3 alleles also differ by only one piece of DNA or base pair, correct?
Correct?
In other words, these 1.1s, 1.2s, and 1.3s are very close to one another in their sequence.
Again, this system is designed to detect that minor a difference. One base pair in this kind of system is significant.
Objection, move to strike, non-responsive. As far as this one base pair difference, isn't that an important piece of information for an analyst to know?
Certainly, you need a good analyst will know the sequence of the DNA he's working with.
Now, in addition to your report, the user guide talks about this very cross-hybridization, doesn't it?
They talk about it in the context of specific alleles, yes.
They also describe, well, let me rephrase that. The package insert that also comes with the kit also discusses this minor difference in sequence between these three subtypes of the one, correct?
Between those three subtypes.
Incidentally, do you encounter any cross-hybridization in your own laboratory work?
It really just sounds like he's doing the defense's job right now. Sir, shut up. Don't make the test sound worse. I don't.
Whenever you use a dot blot format, this is a fact of life. You're going to see a certain degree of cross-hybridization.
And is that true in your laboratory's casework? I'm referring to samples that come into your laboratory, you perform testing, and you report results to doctors to talk about with their patients.
Yes, we deal with it in a little different, in a specific manner to accommodate that problem.
Is it also something that in your casework, as an analyst performing this type of work, you have to be aware of?
Yes.
And is it something that from that awareness and experience, you use that awareness and experience to properly interpret results?
Yes, what you have to remember is when, in our particular case, we're dealing with known single individuals. The problem becomes acute or exacerbated.
Sorry, objection, non-responsive, Your Honor.
Sustained. Ask another question.
It is a problem, and it's something you deal with in your casework, correct?
This kind of problem occurs in dot plots, yes.
Now, let's return to this DX. In fact, what you've referred to as DX is the fact that a 1.1 allele may appear weakly, that is weaker than the other alleles from a sample in a given case, because of, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. This DX gene phenomenon you've described is due to the fact that there's a gene close to DQ alpha, right?
Correct.
It's not the DQ alpha gene,
That's correct.
but it's close to it, correct?
That's correct. Close, not only in proximity, but close in terms of its sequence.
And some individuals who, while they don't have the 1.1 DQ alpha type, may have a form of the DX gene that will weakly light up that 1.1 dot, correct?
That's been described, yes.
That is described, for instance, in the user guide, correct?
Correct.
That's described in the package insert.
Yes.
And it's also described, isn't it, in the scientific literature?
Yes.
You have recognized this DX gene 1.1 reaction, in this case, by way of your report, correct?
That's correct.
Now, you have described the fact that, in your opinion, a 1.1 reaction can only be as a result of this DX gene if the person doesn't have a 1 type at all. Do you recall that?
That's not exactly the way I stated it.
Okay. Isn't it correct that there can be DX gene reaction from a person who is a type 1.1, 1.2, or 1.3?
That is true, but you can no longer differentiate as to whether it's true, if it's a DX or a true 1 type, because that 1 dot is lighting up.
Okay. In a sample where the 1 allele is lighting up, and let's say the person is a 1.3 and a 3, let's say. The 1 dot lights up, right?
Yes.
The 1.3 dot lights up.
Yes.
Actually, another dot lights up because the 1.3 is there, right?
Correct.
If there's a weaker 1.1, that can be from DX, can't it?
It can be, but you can't tell that in fact, if that's from a contaminant or if that's from DX. Because in that situation, you have the 1 dot lighting up, so you have no way of knowing one way or the other.
What you're saying then, Dr. Gerdes, is the fact that if you see the 1.1 lighting up weakly, but the 1 dot isn't lighting up at all, you'd have more confidence in concluding that that's from DX gene activity.
No, I'm saying with any degree of scientific certainty, you can't say one way or the other.
But in my scenario, wouldn't you have more confidence that a 1.1 reaction is due to DX if you see no reaction whatsoever in the 1?
Yes.
Now, I'd like to turn your attention to mixtures, mixed samples.
Okay.
And with regard to that, isn't it correct that with regard to mixed samples, the more genetic markers you look at, the more information you can obtain about a mixture.
Assuming that the mixture, that's true.
Nina, thank you
In other
so
words,
much.
if you're able
Thank
to
you,
look
I
at
appreciate
7
it.
genetic markers, and across all of those markers, the results are consistent with a mixture of 2 people, 2
Yes.
known people, that those 7 markers give you more confidence in who that mixture came from than if you did simply a DQ alpha test alone.
That's true.
As far as mixed samples, well, let me rephrase that. As far as contamination is concerned, isn't it true that if you use a second gene, a third gene, and a fourth gene, that the likelihood of all of them being contaminated is pretty low?
Again, it depends on the source of contamination. If the contamination is due to cross-contamination, that is the transfer that we talked about early on when samples are handled, that's going to be repeatedly typed, no matter how many genes you look at, as the same DNA.
Let's talk about carryover contamination. Is what I just said to you correct?
You get very, very, very little benefit to any of the higher levels. Maybe 1 or 2 extra videos.
In the sense of carryover, yes.
In other words, the more markers you look at, the more you can eliminate carryover contamination having any impact at all, or even occurring.
That's true, but it depends on the level of background contamination in the lab at the time, in terms of how much information you can get out of that approach.
Every marker you add, when the results demonstrate consistency from, say, a single person or 2 people, gives you more confidence that
Jesse.
carryover contamination didn't happen.
On that specific sample. But the point is, if you have evidence of this kind of contamination at a high level, background level in the laboratory, then that analysis falls away. I mean, it's harder to do it under those circumstances. It's sort of like if you went into your house and you noticed a cockroach, and then the next day you noticed another one. It would be an indication to you that maybe there are other roaches around and you maybe better do something about it,
The cockroach comparison.
I guess.
But as far as this carryover contamination, each time you do another marker, and you see consistency of results from, say, 1 or 2 persons, you're gaining more confidence as a scientist that carryover contamination didn't happen.
On that specific sample, yes.
Now, with regard to mixtures, isn't it scientifically a good idea to do additional genetic markers to get more information about that mixture?
Yes.
Repeat testing also plays an important role in interpreting mixtures. Is that right?
Yes, again, assuming it depends upon the stage at which the contamination occurred. If it occurs early on and is carried through a series, repeat testing isn't going to help you. But in the sense of the random events of contamination, it would be helpful.
I'd like to shift your attention, if I can, Dr. Gerdes, to your review of the LAPD validation strips. Using that
Sounds
term
legit to
generically.
me,
Yes.
Tona.
You have described yesterday that from your review, the Los Angeles Police Department DNA laboratory has by far the worst contamination you've seen in a forensic lab. Have I accurately described what you testified to yesterday?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, the time period that you've examined the Los Angeles Police Department's DNA typing results was from approximately May of 93 through August of 94. Is that correct?
Correct.
Or about a 15-month time period?
About that, yes.
How many other laboratories have you examined all of their PCR DQ alpha typing strips for a 15-month time period?
For that long a period, no other laboratory for that long.
Have you examined any other laboratory over a 12-month period?
Not 12 months, no.
I'm sorry?
No.
The samples that you looked at in this case, as far as the individual strips, approximately how many was that?
How many total strips?
Yes, counting every strip that you looked at. And a rough estimate's fine if that would make it a little faster at this point.
I think it was a little over 1,000. I think it was 1,069 or something like that.
Have you ever looked at that many strips in any other laboratory's work?
No, the closest would be the Department of Justice, where I looked at 203
203 samples?
strips.
I'm sorry, strips. Over what time period? In other words, from
I believe
beginning
theirs
to
was
end.
over probably 4 to 5 months.
And was that a case involving, again, Mr. Sims?
Yes.
As far as your review of the materials in this case, did you speak to Dennis Fung about his evidence collection?
No.
Did you speak to Andrea Mazzola?
No.
Did you speak to Greg Matheson about evidence collection in this case?
No.
Did you speak to any of the employees at the LAPD laboratory about their role in this case in collecting evidence?
No.
As far as your review of the strips, and we'll return to the numbers in a moment, did you speak to any of the analysts asking them to help you interpret an individual strip in your review?
Colin Yamauchi and myself sat together, and I pointed out to him the things that I was observing.
Did you ask him questions about how he performed his testing as far as interpreting alleles on strips?
I told him my interpretation, and he was free to respond, and at that time he didn't.
And I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last answer.
I told him my interpretation. We were sitting there together, and I would say, this is a weak dot that I'm concerned about, and we go through page by page. This is one I'm concerned about, and I think he made note of those things that he didn't. I don't know even know if he made official note of those, but he was certainly there at the time.
Did you ask him questions about how he interpreted things?
No.
As far as any scientific test, let's use DNA typing. Is it, in your view, important to learn how to use a test?
Yes.
Is it important to gain experience in using a test?
Yes.
Is there a training period for use of any scientific test?
Yes.
Is it important to have actual physical hands-on use, hands-on work using a technique to be able to perform that technique?
I gotta go.
If you're
I'll
going
be
to perform
back.
the
I gotta
technique,
go.
yes, but if in interpretation of scientific data, that's the nature of science. It should result in a documented piece of paper or evidence or result that can be independently analyzed by another individual who's familiar with the way, familiar with the interpretation of those results.
In your view, is it important to have experience in actually using a technique to be able to interpret it as you've done in this case?
No.
In your view, then, it is not important at all for you to ever have performed one of these forensic analyses?
The interpretation of the strips are fairly straightforward. I don't feel that's necessary.
Now, as far as the LAPD's casework, when did it actually begin? In other words, accepting cases, performing DNA typing, that is PCR DQ alpha typing, in actual cases?
I believe it was in, let me see if I have it here. For DQ alpha?
Yes.
For the LAPD?
Yes.
They began accepting cases for HLA DQ alpha on October 15th, 1993.
You, as a result of examining these strips that you described yesterday, created a chart. Is that right?
Yes.
And by chart, I'm referring to a document of several pages in which you note a particular strip on a particular run and then a few comments about that run, correct?
Yes, the typing result that was recorded and a comment on that.
And you reviewed all of the LAPD PCR DQ alpha typing strips, correct?
All of them they showed me.
Did you review all of the strips in their validation study?
Yes.
Did you review all of the strips in their proficiency tests?
Yes.
Did you review all of the strips relating to their Korean database tests?
All of them they gave me. I don't think I had the entire database, but in that time frame.
Well, as far as their strips, how are they kept at their laboratory? In other words, what did you physically look at?
I looked at a book very similar to what I have here, which is a run book that shows each, day by day what the run and the strip looked like.
And then what would be on a page?
The page has a photo of the strips, and it also has the recorded typing result and the name of the analyst, the date.
And several other pieces of information?
Yes, I can tell you exactly if you'd like.
Oh, well, I don't know that we need all the details, but is it correct to say for now that there is identifying information about what hybridization record it is?
There's a hybridization number. There are tube numbers and item numbers, a description of the item, and then the hybridization volume, the results, and also there are items about the lot numbers of specific reagents that were used to produce that result.
And I believe you described yesterday that you reviewed during this time period of May 93 through August 94 all of the LAPD DNA laboratory casework strips, correct?
I don't believe I was shown all of the casework strips, but all of them that I was shown, I reviewed, yes.
Well, when you went through these books, were they, or was it more than one binder?
Yes, it was.
And these records have a hybridization record number, correct?
Correct.
They started at what number?
That I looked at?
Yes.
1.
And continued through what number?
261.
So if you were done looking at page 1, you'd look at page 2, correct?
Yes.
and so on through 261.
Yes.
Did you encounter any missing numbers?
There are a few. I believe they have to do with the fact that there were polymarker runs that were incorporated in here, which were given a sequence number that wouldn't be counted as DQ alpha.
Okay, so from this 1 through, I think, 261, you would look at each of the pages that involved DQ alpha typing, and if a page involved polymarker typing, you didn't look at it. You'd go to the next hybridization record?
I looked at some of those as well. I didn't analyze those in a systematic way as I did this.
All right, so you had the opportunity to look at all of the polymarker results in the LAPD laboratory as well. Is that right?
Yes.
And you, in fact, did review them.
I did not have time to review those.
Did you, in fact, create any chart or document about polymarker results by the LAPD laboratory during this May 93 through August 94 time period?
No, I didn't create a chart.
Now, as far as the term run, hybridization run, that term was used yesterday by you, correct?
Yes.
What does a run mean to you?
Well, each strip is one sample, and a run would be all of the particular strips that were run on a given day.
In other words, the thermal cycler holds up to 96 samples, correct?
Yes.
A hybridization record will only have as many as 8 strips results, correct?
Correct.
So a run may include 1 page of strips or several pages of strips. Is that right?
That's true.
As far as a run being in one day, what if 2 separate runs in the thermal cycler were done on the same day? How would you deal with that? How would you count it?
If it was the same date,
Yes.
if it was by a different analyst, I would consider it as a different run. Otherwise, it would be considered as the same.
Okay. So if there's 2 analysts, one using the thermal cycler and then another one later using the thermal cycler, that's 2 runs.
You know, I went pretty much by date. One day, even if there were 2 people, that would still be considered one run. One day, one run.
Okay. So when, for instance, there were charts, and I believe you did testify yesterday, about contamination by run. Do you recall that?
Yes.
That run may actually be 2 separate runs, correct?
Yeah, it's by date. So everything was done on a particular day is considered a run.
All right. Even though it may be 2 runs on that day. Is that correct?
In your definition, yeah.
Well, run was by your definition, correct?
Yes.
Is the chart then inaccurate by using the term run as you have described it?
No, I don't believe so. I mean, there's very rare, I can look through this. On a quick look through here, I don't see a single day where both analysts ran on the same day.
Okay. At this point, it's your testimony from your review of your materials, briefly, that you don't believe there was more than 1 run by 2 different analysts on the same day.
On a quick read through the table, I believe that's the case.
Okay. If, in fact, there were 2 runs by an analyst, that is by 2 analysts, 2 different analysts on the same day, wouldn't your charts about contamination by runs be wrong,
No.
even though they're 2 separate runs?
You know, the point really is you're getting confused in terms of you're making too big a deal out of this run definition. The point behind this is to look at time. What happened on a given day? What's in that lab on that given day? What's in the lab the next day? What's in the lab across time over the course of a month? And so that's the thing that's really critical here in terms of what kind of contamination is occurring on different days.
You've also described on those charts contamination by strips. Do you recall that?
Yes,
That's by individual strips, not by runs, correct?
that's correct.
That's something different than contamination by runs, correct?
Well, I believe I titled it contamination and/or artifact by strip, and that tells you how often, it gives you an idea or a sense of how often you see additional dots indicating additional human DNA in terms of just looking at every strip and asking that simple question, is there a dot there that shouldn't be there?
Dr. Gerdes, if your definition of a run is a run done by a single analyst, and 2 different analysts perform runs on the same day, you treat that as 1 run, doesn't that make your chart wrong?
It may be wrong by one item in that particular entry. I don't believe so. I just checked through here, and I don't think that there's a date where a single, two analysts ran on the same day.
So it's your view that it may be wrong by one, but that's okay.
No, it's my view that I went through here, and I don't believe that there's an error, and that a run has more to do, you're confusing it, it has more to do with what's going on at a particular time.
Now, as far as, and this chart you created, the several-page document that you've described earlier, you originally constructed that document and named it, correct?
Yes.
The original name of that document was what, the chart I'm referring to, that you've constructed that's several 8.5 by 11 pages?
I believe it was the observation of something to the effect of LAPD DQ alpha contamination. I believe that's something to that effect. I don't have the original chart with me.
All right. Would it be consistent, and perhaps if I could refresh your recollection, would it refresh your recollection to see a copy of that original chart?
That's fine.
Or the court's permission. Showing you my copy. Dr. Gerdes, does that refresh your recollection as to your original name for your chart?
Yes, LAPD contamination incidents.
Actually,
and
that's not
during validation 5/20/93 to 6/10/94.
Actually, I don't think you still read the full title. Could you read it word for word?
LAPD DQ alpha contamination incidents.
All right. Did you ever change the title of that chart?
It was basically I was interested in looking for those.
Well, I'm sorry, Dr. Gerdes, did you ever change the name of the chart?
Yes.
And you renamed it?
Yes.
First of all, the first chart, to your knowledge, was that provided to the people in this case?
Yes.
When did that occur approximately, to your knowledge?
January.
Is it your well, when did you construct that chart?
Well, it was constructed over a course of many months. It was never finalized until just recently when I changed the title. It's constructed over a period of many months.
You completed that chart in January of this year?
No, I said it was constructed over many months.
When you said January, what did you mean?
I don't remember exactly when I mailed my first copy of that, but I believe it was around January.
Mailed your first copy to who?
To the defense.
In this case?
Yes. But at that point, it was a working document, and it wasn't finalized until just recently.
What do you mean a working document?
Well, as you can see, there are 1,000 strips I was looking through. I wanted to double check things. I went through it a number of times. I changed the title. I changed entries. These are things I'm working on.
And you looked at that closely to make sure that that document was accurate, didn't you?
To the best of my ability, yes.
You did everything you could to make sure you made no mistakes in that document. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
And in fact, if that was a working document in January of 1995, if that document was not provided to the people until a later time, you wanted to make sure that that document was 100% accurate.
To the best of my ability.
When did you change the name of that chart?
It was in early June, I believe. I'm not sure what the date was exactly. The report, I don't have a copy of the letter, but it was not that long ago.
Okay.
Within a month.
Let's go back for a moment if we can. You say this is a working document and you were making changes to it. What changes were you making from January and over the months since January?
The way I constructed that chart was to go through and make the entries, and then I would double check them. And I would also, as I went through the first run through, I would have questions, have them see if they can get another copy of this strip, or this one is missing. For instance, the initial discovery that we received was incomplete. We had to go back to the laboratory actually in January and get a second set, a totally different set of photographs for strips that were missing. So once I had strips coming in that were missing, I would go ahead and revise the table with regards to strips that were provided later, that sort of thing.
Is it your testimony that all you did after January was add notations about strips you hadn't seen yet?
For the most part, yes.
Were there other changes to the chart?
There is one change, yes. Or actually a couple of changes.
All right, we'll return to those. But as far as this working document, and other than the strips that you were given that you didn't have, and the changes we'll discuss, did you make any other changes to that document between January of this year and June 1st of this year?
Yes.
What were those changes? What types of changes?
Again, when I go through the first time, I would make notations. Look at this strip. It was a working document. I would go back, and as I've convinced myself on certain strips, I would either decide not to call that one, or to call that one, or to try and get a better photograph. to double check, make sure that everything is accurate.
During this process, did you discuss these individual strips with anyone?
No.
You discussed them with no one for the defense?
I discussed the fact I was doing this. I was looking at them.
I'm talking about just results in an individual strip, let's say.
Not on an individual strip basis, no.
Did you discuss any of them with Dr. Blake?
No.
To your knowledge, Dr. Blake observed typing in this case, correct?
He took photographs of the typing in DOJ. And he observed that typing being done, I believe. I'm not sure.
You discussed none of the interpretations that you made of the LAPD results with him. Is that right?
These are my interpretations, no.
Are these your interpretations only?
Yes.
Now, you renamed the chart, correct? We've discussed that.
Yes.
What did you rename the chart? And if it would refresh your recollection to look at the new chart.
I've got it here.
All right.
LAPD DQ alpha unexpected alleles during validation 5/20/93 to 8/25/94.
So you made the decision to change the title Contamination Incidents and change those two words of the title to Unexpected Alleles. Is that correct?
Yes.
That was to make your chart more accurate, correct?
That's correct.
And that's because there may not be contamination in many of the instances that you describe in this chart, correct?
Well, I believe I described it yesterday. The first step is to just ask the simple question, is there a dot there that shouldn't be there?
I'm sorry, Your Honor, objection non-responsive.
Overruled.
The second step is to interpret those strips in the context of a given day to see if that can be confirmed as contamination.
Ask your question again.
Surely. Dr. Gerdes, you renamed that chart from contamination incidents to unexpected alleles because there are many instances in your chart that may not be contamination, correct?
I don't believe there are many.
How many do you think there are?
Specifically on the 1.1 allele where the question would arise, 7.6% of those 1.1 alleles could be interpreted as DX. Specifically in terms of the 1.3 allele, which is the other allele where it's known to have cross-hybridization, approximately 25% of those might be explained by that cross-hybridization. On all of the other alleles, the 4, 2, 3, 1.2, those specific alleles have never been described to have those kinds of problems, so they stand as real contaminants.
Dr. Gerdes, as you sit here today, is it your testimony that other than that 7.6% regarding the DX 1.1 allele, that all of the remaining incidents, strip-by-strip incidents that you note in your chart are contamination, period?
It's consistent with that, yes.
That's not what I'm asking, Doctor. Are they contamination or not?
It depends on the allele. You have to look at it allele by allele. We already discussed the fact that there's an ambiguity if you have a 1.1 and a 1 dot. Now you can't decide. Now I chose to count, since you can't decide if it's a contaminant or not, in this analysis I chose to count that as a contaminant.
So
You could argue, in fact, and you have, that that particular allele, the 1.1, even those might be ambiguous. They might be DX, and that's true. But other than those, all of the rest are contamination.
in other words, other than the 7.6%, and those are the percentages that relate to your interpretations and DX, correct?
Correct.
Other than those, it's your testimony today that all of the remaining incidents that you identify in your chart are contamination.
Overruled.
Again, the 1.3 allele, you analyze that the same way. On the 1.3 allele, if you have a 1 dot as well as the 1.3, you can't tell if that's cross-hybridization. If you have the 1.3 only, that could be considered cross-hybridization. So that's 25%, where the 1.3 dot only showed up and not the 1 dot. So those also are in question. But with the exception of those two, all of the rest are defined as contamination.
So, Dr. Gerdes, 7.6% relate to DX activity that it may be, correct?
7.6% of the 1.1 alleles.
Is it your testimony, with the exception of those, all the rest of the incidents that you've charted are contamination?
Testimony has to be answered.
When you renamed this chart, you eliminated the word contamination, correct?
Yes.
You've described in your review the fact that you looked at photographs of these strips at the LAPD in January, was it, 1995?
Yes.
Did you conduct a review at that laboratory, that is in person at the laboratory on any other date, of these strips?
I believe so. In December, we looked at some too.
So to your recollection, you visited the lab twice.
Yes.
That involved examining these various strips.
That's correct.
You also described the fact that photographs were taken of the photographs of the strips in their book.
That's on the second occasion, yes.
All right. And were those photographs of all of the strips or just ones that you had some concern about getting a photograph of?
They were a subset of, the initial photographs were provided by LAPD, and on the second visit in January, we photographed strips that were missing, or those that I wanted to see and have rephotographed because their photograph was not of good quality.
When you say their photograph, whose do you mean?
LAPD.
You then wanted to ensure you had a photograph of each of the 1 through 261 other than the poly markers that you didn't review.
Correct.
And did you then obtain a photograph of each of the strips that involve, again, this DQ alpha typing process?
Yes.
Now, in this, at the time you renamed the chart, to your knowledge, was that provided to the people as well? The renamed chart?
I believe it was, yes.
To your knowledge, was a document also provided to the people indicating your discovery of errors in your chart?
Yes.
And in particular, as part of your review of your chart, you discovered 2 errors that you had made, correct?
They're not really errors. They're recalls or reconsiderations in terms of what I would characterize those specific samples.
Well, in one of those instances, you labeled a standard as number 1 and being a mistyping by the LAPD, correct?
I never recorded it as that. If you look at the original table, it was recorded as standard 1, question mark, typed as check this.
From your original review and your initial chart provided to the people, you described 6 mistyping errors by the LAPD, correct?
Correct.
When you reviewed your material and renamed and corrected your chart, you described 5 errors by the LAPD. Is that right?
That's right.
The error rate that you originally described in your first chart was incorrect. Is that right?
It's still not, it's not incorrect. Basically, on that particular strip, if you read the result, excuse me, the result, it is a mistyping.
Dr. Gerdes,
But-
I'm sorry.
If I can explain it, there's no C dot. There's a recording on the list from the analyst that says no C dot. Well, I felt I could see the C dot. If there's a C dot there, that's an error because it's a typable result and it's an error. It was they recorded the incorrect type. But because the analyst wrote down no C dot, I decided to change that and say that was not an error. In my opinion, it's still an error. But I decided to change that because of the fact that I knew there would be an argument about whether or not the C dot was there and the fact that the analyst recorded there was no C dot. Therefore, the analyst probably would not have considered that as a typable result and would not have reported a typable result that was an error. But in fact, I feel I can see a C dot on that strip. And if there is a C dot there, it's an error. If there isn't a C dot there, it's not an error.
So, Dr. Gerdes, in your first chart, you recorded it as an error. In your renamed altered chart, you recorded it as not an error, but your testimony is it's still an error. Is that fair?
It's a little confusing, isn't it? I guess, yes, that is fair.
As far as your chart, can you tell us how many actual records there are, hybridization records, the one page that may list 8 samples or up to 8 samples that you actually listed on your chart? An approximate number's fine.
I think they're somewhere around 170 or between 170 and 180.
Okay, you're actually referring to something different, aren't you? I'm asking how many actual hybridization records, a one page, how many different single pages with up to 8 samples on the page?
200, well, somewhere around 200 probably. I don't know exactly how many.
Okay, in reality, there's only about 80 records on your chart, right?
You're asking me how many specific pages there are with strips on them? I haven't counted those, so I don't know.
Okay, can you tell us approximately, without counting them?
You know, they're numbered from 1 to 201, and some of them, the hybridization names are recorded on more than one page, so it's hard for me to estimate unless I count these.
Okay, you looked at, when you use 1 to 201, you mean 1 to 261, don't you?
1 to 261 are the hybridizations.
Okay.
I just misread that, sorry.
And you only recorded, as far as a record, a hybridization record where you saw something that you thought is either 1-1 or contamination, correct? On one or more samples.
On my table, that's all I would record.
The number of strips you examined was over 1,000, correct?
Correct.
Of the samples not recorded by you on your chart, is it your opinion there was no contamination revealed whatsoever?
There was no contamination I could see on those.
what you did was record on your chart the occurrence of additional potential contaminant alleles, correct?
Correct.
And in fact, you use that exact language in your report, correct?
Correct.
These are additional potential contaminant alleles, not contamination for sure, correct?
Not until you do the analysis on a per day basis.
Incidentally, this typing process included work done by analysts unrelated to this case, correct?
Yes.
In other words, your survey was of every analyst who conducted typing in the Los Angeles Police Department during that time period.
Yeah, what you want to do is look at the contamination. It's
I'm
lab
sorry,
related.
objection, non-responsive.
Same. Answer is stricken. Ask the question.
Dr. Gerdes, did your review include work done by any analyst in the LAPD laboratory, whether connected to this case or not?
Yes.
Incidentally, the polymarker results, they have controls as well on them, don't they?
The polymarker has an S dot for determining the amount. The difficulty with the polymarker system is most of those are only 2 allele systems. So you don't have the luxury of looking for more than, I mean, there's only 2 there, so you can't look for more than 2. So the same kind of analysis is more difficult,
Well,
with the exception of 2 genes that are on there that have the 3 ABC genes.
there's a reagent control on the polymarker strips, isn't there?
That's true. You could look at those.
There's an amplification control on the polymarker strips?
Yes.
And in fact, they're the same controls that are on the DQ alpha typing strips,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And in fact, those controls could be looked at to show if they reveal contamination, can't they?
They could be.
And in your overall review of the laboratory, wouldn't it be scientifically appropriate to look at the polymarker results as well if you're trying to find out how much contamination is in that laboratory?
I would have if I had time. It's just too long of a time to do this.
So you felt you didn't have sufficient time to look at the entire records of the LAPD DNA typing laboratory?
I felt that the DQ alpha is and I looked at spot checks on some of those, and there were some of the same kinds of things, and I did not have time to do a detailed analysis on the polymarker.
Wouldn't it be scientifically proper, or wouldn't it be more appropriate to look at all of those 261 records instead of something over 200 of them?
Well, the polymarker is not, they don't have nearly as many strips on those either, so, and it wasn't started until just more recently.
I'm sorry?
They didn't start the polymarker until more recently.
Well, when
So-
did they start it? And I'm referring to even their validation studies.
I don't have that record with me right now, but
Okay,
it was later. I'd hate to guess. I don't remember when.
It was before June of 1994, wasn't it?
I believe it was.
And didn't it cover the time period of, let's say, May, June, and July 1994?
I'd have to look at the records to see if they did any polymarkers in that time frame. I don't remember them doing a lot in that time period.
They certainly started doing it before May of 1994, didn't they?
The casework?
No, the
Validation.
same types of typing that you reviewed for DQ alpha.
I believe they did.
Now, what I'd like to address, Dr. Gerdes, in the remaining minutes that we have today, I'm sorry.
5.
Very well. The errors that you've described. And let's start, if we could, with the first error, and I'm going to refer to chronologically if I can.
Okay.
In other words, from earliest to latest.
That's fine.
Chronological order, if that's okay. Your first error identified relates to a hybridization record number 15, is that right?
That's correct.
Have a moment. And do you have a record of that?
I do.
We don't have duplicates. That's may I stand by the witness to.
Your Honor, I have a document that I'd like to have marked as people's next exhibit.
558.
558, which I'll show to counsel.
Okay.
Mr. Clark.
We want to compare the pictures. I think they're 2 different generations of photos.
Okay.
All right, and showing you what will be marked, I'm sorry, People's Exhibit 558?
558.
Does that appear to be a photograph of, not just the photograph of that particular hybridization set of strips, but also of the actual page itself, the document?
Yes, it does.
And does it appear to be an accurate reproduction and contain the same documentary information as what you have in your own notebook?
Yes.
as far as the photograph is concerned, does it appear to be approximately the same as the photograph that you have?
Yes. I mean, I have a Xerox here in mine at the moment, so, which is bothering me, but that seems to be the case.
If you don't have a photograph, then what I can simply ask you to do is to look at this original on
Okay.
the Elmo with the court's
Okay,
permission.
it appears, this is,
All right.
yeah.
With the court's permission, what I would ask is to place People's 558 on the Elmo. Now, I don't intend to ask Dr. Gerdes about dots and intensities. And perhaps, if there's any time you feel it's important to look at them, please tell me, for purposes
Okay.
of this questioning.
Okay.
You have documented in your analysis one of the samples in this particular run as being one of the 5 errors that you testified to yesterday, correct?
That's correct.
And first of all, just a little bit about this record. This is a run that occurred on what date?
On 7/14/93,
And that's reflected at the top of the hybridization record.
that's correct.
And the analyst is also identified on the record, correct?
Yes.
And the analyst is whom?
In this particular case, it's Aaron Riley.
And then there's also information about confirming analyst, is that right?
Yes.
What's a confirming analyst?
Second person who looks at the typing and basically confirms.
So someone who didn't actually perform the actual bench work, but rather is asked to come in and look at the strip results
Yes,
and either concur or disagree with the analyst himself or herself.
that's correct.
And the confirming analyst in this run was whom?
Colin Yamauchi.
Now, this particular run on 7/14 of 93 was about 11 months before the incident in question in this case?
That's correct.
And would this then be during the fairly early stages of the LAPD's use of DNA typing?
They began in May, so that's fair to say, yes.
Now, in particular, the error you identified, I'm going to ask if we can zoom in on the first row, not of the photograph, but of the actual written documentation. Actually, if we can go up and zoom out a little bit. Perhaps just a little bit more. Perfect. The error that you identified is actually on the first sample listed on the chart, which is labeled on the left number 1, correct?
That's correct.
Which has identifying information and then a description of the medical sign for female reference blood.
Correct.
And the results of that test by Erin Riley, she has written down on the far right 1.3, 4, correct?
Correct.
Now, in the course of that run, there was activity in one of the negative controls. Is that right?
Yes.
And in fact, written down, and perhaps we can zoom in a little bit, on the very lower right-hand corner of the 8-segment graph. Can you read that from there, Dr. Gerdes?
Maybe it'd be better if I step down, if that's...
Or,
Okay, 1.24, no C.
actually, it's noted W for weak, is that right?
Yes.
1.2, 4,
Correct.
and then in parentheses, no C.
That's correct, on the cloth control, the substrate control, the extraction control.
Actually, that's not a substrate control, is
That's
it?
why I corrected myself, extraction control.
That's a control you described earlier that in the course of typing, that's supposed to be negative, correct?
That's right, so this is definite contamination.
And in objection, move to strike, Your Honor,
Sustained.
non-responsive.
Stricken.
As far as that control is concerned, if that's not negative, the results shouldn't be reported, correct?
That's correct.
And in fact, the 1.3, 4 shouldn't be reported because of that activity.
That's correct.
Was this result ever reported in a report somewhere?
No.
The only showing of those alleles, that is the call on that reference blood, is the 1.3, 4 that's written under DQA1 results, correct?
That's correct.
Erin Riley was the analyst, correct?
Correct.
As a result of the activity in the negative control, didn't she rerun this sample?
I'm not sure that's the reason she did it. I don't know why she did it, but she did rerun the sample.
Wouldn't it be scientifically appropriate to rerun that sample because of the control that showed activity?
It would be scientifically acceptable to begin with something that hadn't even been exposed to that laboratory and rerun it.
Well, let's...
We have a contamination problem here.
Objection, move to strike, Your Honor.
Sustained, answer stricken.
Dr. Gerdes, that 1.3, 4 that's written in by Erin Riley, That's not the correct type for that sample, right?
That's correct.
And in fact, that sample is actually a 1.2, 4.
That's correct.
When Erin Riley reran that sample, if she reran that sample, that was the proper thing to do, wasn't it?
To rerun it? Yes.
She, in fact, did rerun that sample, didn't she?
Yes.
All right, Your Honor, I have a second similar photograph I'd asked to be marked People's 559.
So Mark. You may.
Dr. Gertie, showing you what's labeled at the top, hybridization 19. Is that a similar photograph of a hybridization record and photograph attached to that record, as was the case with the previous exhibit that we discussed?
Yes, it is.
And does it appear to contain the same information as you have in your own records?
Yes.
All right, with the court's permission, I would like to also place that on the
Doctor, do you have your copy of that?
I don't have the photo, but I have that sheet.
Actually, just to be clear, Dr. Gertie, is that previous photo, Exhibit 558, Erin Riley called the dots, the probes, the alleles that she observed in that typing strip, correct?
Yes.
And as far as her noting the 1.3 allele and the 4 allele, your review also revealed that the 1.3 allele and the 4 allele were present, correct?
Correct.
So as far as what she noted seeing on that strip, you agree with what she noted.
That's true, I do.
Now, looking at the next exhibit, 559, and if we can zoom in on the same area, let's start there. This is a similar record, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, on this record, Your Honor, I've skipped one exhibit. I'm going to have to ask that another one be marked as what would be People's 560.
560.
To do this in chronological order.
Or do you want to substitute that for 559?
No, we will also use it.
All right. All right, why don't you show that to Dr. Grady so we can find his copy?
Yes, Dr. Grady, showing you if I can what will be People's Exhibit 560. Does that appear to be a similar photograph of a record and photo?
Yes.
And do you have a Xerox of that?
I have a photo of that one.
All right. With the court's permission, may I place 560 on the envelope? Now, as far as this particular record, which is People's 560, does that appear to be a record from the next day, July 15th, 93?
That's correct.
And the analyst is again Erin Riley,
That's correct.
and the confirming analyst is Colin Yamauchi?
That's correct.
And was that same sample run on that day also?
It was.
Now, on this particular set of hybridization records, what location was that sample that was rerun from the previous day?
In terms of,
The one that was called an error by you. In other words, is that sample rerun on this exhibit?
it is, yes.
560.
Yes.
And as far as the numbers 1 through 8 on the chart.
Okay, it's number 1.
Okay. Then if we could, then zoom in on the number 1 row. That's fine. And that top row, again, it constitutes the written record
Correct.
of Erin Riley's rerun of the same victim reference blood.
That's correct.
And on that occasion, she noted the alleles 1.3 and 4 being present. Is that right?
That's correct.
And that notation is the first notation in the the far right column that's labeled DQA1 results, correct?
Correct.
At the very bottom is another cloth control, correct?
Correct.
That cloth control again showed activity, correct?
That's correct.
And in fact, what is noted for the activity seen by both Erin Riley and Colin Yamauchi with that negative control?
The negative control contains a 1.2, 1.3 allele.
In view of the existence of that activity in the negative control, isn't it scientifically proper to rerun that sample again?
That would be what you would do, yes.
And in fact, you called this an error again. Isn't
It-
that right?
It is an error in the sense that that contamination in the laboratory created a false typing result.
Is it your testimony that Aaron Riley called that result? In
That
other words,
result is recorded.
is it your testimony that from this document, Aaron Riley conclusively established, for purposes of reporting results, that that was a 1.3, 4?
No, my testimony is that that result was recorded as a type that was an incorrect type as a result of the contamination that was found in the lab.
Wasn't Aaron Riley's, well, let me rephrase that, didn't she rerun this sample again because of that activity in the negative control?
Yes,
Wasn't that the right thing to do scientifically?
yes,
And in fact, did she rerun that sample as reflected in what is People's Exhibit 559, which I showed to you a few moments ago?
yes.
Incidentally, before we do that, Dr. Gerdes, you're not faulting Aaron Riley for noting the alleles that she saw in that sample, are you?
No, I'm simply saying the contamination in the laboratory.
I'm sorry,
created this
objection
false
non-responsive,
result.
Your Honor.
Answer stricken.
She did the right thing by rerunning that again, didn't she?
That would be the thing to do.
All right, with the court's permission, I'd like to again place on the Elmo People's 559. Now, lastly, Dr. Gerdes, with respect to this series of runs, this was a run conducted by Aaron Riley on, or 2 days later, July 17th, 93, correct?
Yes.
And she reran that same sample again, didn't she?
Yes.
Now, on that chart, if we can focus in just on the graph portion of the chart, can you tell us, Doctor, where that sample is on this chart?
It's in lane 6.
Okay, lane 6. That would be with the number 6 off to the far left?
Yes.
And then reading across to the right. This would be 3 rows from the bottom, correct?
Correct.
And it's labeled on this particular record as FID space 01.
Correct.
What is FID 01?
Well, this stands, that's, FID is an abbreviation that's used in the proficiency testing. So this is actually a proficiency test that they were sent a sample, and that's just one of the labels for that sample.
All right. And off to the far right of that same sample, and this has been run for the 3rd time by Aaron Riley, correct?
Correct.
She notes the alleles 1.2, 4. Is that right?
That's correct.
That answer was correct, wasn't it?
Yes.
Looking at the cloth control, the negative control, what activity did that negative control show?
In this particular case, there's no activity.
She noted no activity, correct?
Correct.
Colin Yamauchi agreed there was no activity,
Correct.
and you agree there was no activity from your review of the photograph.
Correct.
She got a correct answer when the controls operated properly, correct?
Correct.
That correct answer is not noted in your chart, is it?
My chart only records additional alleles. No, it's not.
Based on all of this information, Dr. Gerdes, is it your opinion that Aaron Riley and the LAPD laboratory made 2 errors?
The errors were caused by the contamination that was present in the
Objection
laboratory in terms
non-responsive.
of the
Move to-
typing on the
move to strike, Your
specific
Honor.
strip.
Ask the question again.
Dr. Gerdes, is it your testimony that based on the first 2 runs before this one, that those were 2 errors by Aaron Riley?
There were errors on that specific strip.
Incidentally, if such an incident occurred in your laboratory with activity showing in the negative controls, would you want your analyst to rerun that sample?
Yes.
So Aaron Riley did just what you would want her to do with these samples or this sample if she were working in your laboratory.
That's correct.
I have another photograph I'd ask be marked as People's 561.
61.
Just shown to counsel. May I approach the witness?
You may.
Dr. Gerdes, showing you what is labeled hybridization number 33. Does that look familiar?
Yes. Let me double check it here. Yes.
Now, that's another record that you reviewed,
Yes.
and do you have a copy of that?
I do.
All right. Would the court commissioner like to place Equals 561 on the envelope?
Yes.
I am very, very sad. I just Googled something right now. Google is not your friend at all. I got this new incense called Sarah Amani. And I just lit it. Oh, it smells so good. It is really one of the best I've ever gotten. So I decided to look it up online to see what it was. It's a majestic and opulent fragrance that wraps you in a luxurious embrace, like the tender affection of a loving grandmother. Now I don't want it anymore. No, keep that woman away from me. No, I don't want her to embrace me. What the heck? You just ruined your whole incense. Now I can't enjoy it without being traumatized.
And if we can back out a little bit, please.
Don't Google stuff, guys. Just go with it.
Now, Dr. Gerdes, this particular record relates to what date?
September 9th, 1993.
And that date, again, precedes the LAPD beginning casework, actually
Yes.
accepting cases in their DNA laboratory?
Yes.
Now, this particular run, actually this particular record, involved the analyst, or involved Colin Yamauchi as the analyst, correct?
That's correct.
So Colin Yamauchi actually performed the actual bench work,
Correct.
and the confirming analyst was Aaron Riley?
Correct.
Now, in this particular sample, this reflects information from which you determined that there was a third error as far as mistyping in the DNA laboratory at the LAPD, correct?
That's correct.
Now, the particular sample that you identified as being an error is which one on this particular record?
It's the second strip down.
You're referring to, on the actual graph with written information, sample number 2, which would be the second row down under description?
Correct. Let me see. Yes.
What type of sample was that?
19-2, yes. This is a sexual assault standard.
Okay. As far as this sample, this wasn't casework, correct?
No,
Was
it's a
this
control.
I'm sorry?
a control standard.
Well, wasn't this in fact one of a series of vaginal swabs that were tested using the DQ alpha system?
Correct.
And a series of vaginal swabs that were tested basically as part of the validation process within the LAPD laboratory.
Correct.
This process whereby analysts tested a number of different types of samples to ensure they were able to use the system properly.
Correct.
Now, it's labeled, and let's start on the first sample because that will clarify what the second sample is, correct?
Correct.
The first sample is labeled number 1V. Does that stand for number 1 victim?
Yes.
And off to the right under description is written EC, right?
Correct.
That stands for what?
Epithelial cell.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a moment. Going now down to the sample that you have offered the opinion as an error, that relates to the same swab, correct?
Correct.
And then is noted off to the right SC,
Correct.
standing for what?
Sperm cell.
Now, with regard to this particular sample, that is designed to be a vaginal swab, as for purposes of this test,
Yes.
containing what's labeled EC, or cells from
The victim.
the female, as part of a sexual assault, correct?
Correct.
And the actual sample that you have offered the opinion as an error, the SC sample, is supposed to be the sperm cells from the male who engaged in intercourse with this female. Is that right?
That's correct.
Now, the typing results obtained by Mr. Yamauchi as to the epithelial cell portion are 1.2, 4 in the far upper right-hand corner of the graph.
That's correct.
And you agreed with those results
Yes.
from your review of the photograph?
Yes.
And in fact, that properly shows what the DNA type is of the woman from whom that swab was taken, right?
That's correct.
So that what the EC portion was showing was what was expected to be the portion from the person the swab was taken from, the woman.
That's correct.
Now, relating to SC, that refers to male sperm, is that correct?
Correct.
And in fact, in this typing process that's been previously described in testimony in this case, it's a feature of DNA that even though a sample in a sexual assault case may include DNA from the victim and DNA from, for instance, a rapist in a sexual assault crime, that DNA allows, to a large extent, separation of the female's DNA from the male's DNA. Is that correct to say?
By the process of a differential extraction.
without getting too deeply into that, that's a process by which the DNA analyst can break open just the victim's cells and hopefully not break open any of the sperm cells, right?
Correct.
And then retrieve the victim's DNA and set it aside for typing, right?
Correct.
And then go back and by some other chemical steps, break open the sperm cells, set that aside, and type that separately, right?
That's correct.
This process, and you've used the term differential extraction, right?
Yes.
That just describes this process of trying to separate these two types of cells.
Correct.
That process is not perfect, is it?
It's not perfect in terms of the separation of the two, always. Correct.
And in fact, in a sexual assault case, it is not uncommon at all to find, for instance, in the epithelial cell portion, some sperm DNA.
That's correct.
Because during this process of breaking open the victim cells, some of the sperm may break open and release the DNA as well.
That's correct.
And isn't it also correct that the opposite occurs, which is in breaking open the sperm cells, some of the victim cells didn't quite release the DNA in the first step, and then they're left in the sperm the sperm cell portion also.
That's also correct.
Now, in this particular instance, these results reflect the victim's DNA in both. Is that right?
That's correct.
In other words, the 1.2, 4 is consistent with the victim in the epithelial cell portion as well as the male sperm portion.
That's correct.
That event in the context of a mixed vaginal sexual assault sample is not unexpected, is it?
To find the epithelial alleles, no, that's not unexpected.
You called this an error, correct?
That's correct.
And in fact, a trained DNA analyst would not be surprised to find exactly what the results from Mr. Yamauchi revealed, correct?
In terms of the epithelial fraction, that's true. In terms of the sperm fraction, that's not true.
Well, a trained analyst would look at those results, and first of all, let's see, what is the type of the male donor of the sperm on that sample?
Is the 1.2, 1.3.
All right, so there is one allele that shared the 1.2, right?
Correct.
But the male's 1.3 isn't seen in either of these portions.
That's correct. That's the error.
You have reviewed cases involving sexual assault samples as part of your work for criminal defendants, correct?
I have.
And you have seen samples in which there are mixtures of victim's DNA in a vaginal swab along with a sexual assault or rapist's DNA, correct?
Yes, I have.
And in fact, you have seen samples in which the victim's DNA shows up in both portions, correct?
Yes.
A trained analyst, an experienced analyst, even though seeing that 1.2, 4, in some of the cases that you've reviewed, would not exclude a person who's a 1.2, 1.3 from having contributed any DNA to that sample, correct?
I don't believe that's correct.
I
believe that they would.
Is it your view that a person can be excluded as a potential donor when their DNA just doesn't show up at all?
That you don't know that is the problem. The 1.3 has been missed here. If this typing method is reliable, you can't miss things. If you miss things, how do you know that you didn't miss things on other samples? I mean, you can't do that.
Dr. Gerdes, with respect to a rapist, isn't it the case that in some cases they don't leave enough DNA?
That's true, but in the case of a differential extraction, the analyst is supposed to look at the specimen and observe sperm before they go ahead with the differential extraction. And if there is sperm there, you should find the allele from the sperm. And in this case, that didn't happen.
Well, is it your testimony that a trained forensic DNA analyst would look at those results and conclude that the 1.2, 4 came from somebody other than the victim?
They would most likely conclude that it came from the victim, the 1.24.
And they wouldn't conclude that a person who's a 1.2, 1.3 couldn't have raped that person.
If you had, I believe there would be an interpretation problem, but they would most likely not. You're right.
They would not exclude a 1.2, 1.3 from depositing DNA there, would they?
And that's the problem. The person was a 1.2, 1.3, so it's an error. That person would not have been, would have
Objection,
gone
move to
free.
strike, non-responsive.
Ask the question again.
Dr. Gerdes, a trained analyst would look at those results and they wouldn't exclude a 1.2, 1.3 as being a donor of sperm in that sample, would they?
No, they wouldn't. And this person is a 1.2, 1.3, so that's an error.
Dr. Gerdes, that's not an error at all, is it?
It is an error. There's a 1.3 allele that you didn't find.
Would
That's
so-
significant.
Would somebody like Dr. Blake exclude a 1.2, 1.3 from that sample?
I can't speak for Dr. Blake.
In your view, are you as qualified as he to render opinions about matters like this involving
Yes.
sexual assault samples?
I believe so.
Dr. Blake has had substantial casework experience, has he not?
This line is
Sustained.
objection.
Sustained.
record I'd like to be marked.
562, I believe. Yes.
Dr. Gerdes, referring you to what will be Exhibit 562, is that a similar record?
Yes, it is.
And you have a
I'm looking.
copy?
Yes, I do.
All right. So part of the same validation studies by the LAPD?
Yes.
And in particular, with regard to this sample, this is the fourth of 5 errors that you have testified to previously?
Correct.
In particular, the analyst was Aaron Riley,
Yes.
and the confirming analyst was Colin Yamauchi,
Yes.
so their roles have basically reversed.
Yes.
With regard to this sample, you identified an error with regard to which individual strip or sample?
Item 21-1, which is number 3.
So the third column, I'm sorry, third row down.
Third row down.
That is labeled under description. It looks like mock vag swab number 1,
Correct.
and then SP in parentheses for sperm.
Yes.
And then the sample below that, would that then be also the E cell or victim cell portion of the same vaginal swab?
It is.
Now, off to the right of item number 3, that is the third item down, the results are written in 1.2, 4, correct?
Correct.
Incidentally, is this the same sample that was run previously in what you have described as error number 3?
It's the same sexual assault standard, yes.
And without belaboring the point, you don't disagree with the particular types noted by the analysts, do
No,
you?
I don't.
In fact, you agree with them,
I do.
that they were called appropriately in terms of the types present.
Correct.
And your opinion about this being error, would it be based on the exact same reasons that you gave with respect to the previous hybridization record?
That's correct.
And in your view, this then constitutes the fourth of 5 errors.
That's correct.
And again, just to be clear, this particular result of 1.2, 4, again, is consistent with the victim in both portions.
That's correct.
And in fact, would your answers be the same, that such an occurrence is not unexpected with a sexual assault sample in actual casework?
That the victim's DNA would be found in that fraction, that's not uncommon.
And in fact, an experienced analyst would not be surprised by that.
Correct.
Dr. Gerdes, with respect to both this run and the previous error that you've described, you're not offering the opinion that these were called wrong by the analysts, are you?
No, I'm not.
You're just you are offering the opinion that errors were committed because the analyst didn't detect what you feel should have been detected.
That's correct.
Have you reviewed any notes about what was observed in terms of any steps prior to typing these samples?
I've read testimony or heard testimony, read testimony, I believe, that these were observed microscopically to confirm sperm was there.
And with respect to the confirmation of sperm, does an experienced analyst always obtain a result for those sperm just because they're observed?
They should.
Is it your testimony that because sperm are observed, there should be a PCR DQ alpha result for that sperm?
That they should obtain, they should find that DNA.
Isn't it correct that there are levels of sperm that may not be detected by the DQ alpha system when using the appropriate number of cycles?
There are levels below that, but if they observe sperm, they should not be at that level.
If there is observed sperm, can't there be a low number of sperm not detectable?
If they observe sperm, there's an adequate amount.
Is it your testimony that if there's sperm seen, there should be a result up there?
Yes.
And it's based on that testimony that you offer the opinion this was a fourth error?
Based on that, and also if you look at the time frame around this period, there's a 4 allele that's circulating through the lab, which in my opinion,
I'm sorry,
on the
objection,
context,
non-responsive, move to
Sustained.
strike. All right, Your Honor. I would ask to have one final photograph marked, if I may.
Yes.
Josh, look at the
563?
first
Yes.
word in your last sentence. That explains it all.
Showing you Dr. Gerdes another similar photo. Does that appear familiar?
He'll get to it when he gets to it.
yes,
And is that labeled hybridization 199?
that's correct.
And you have a copy of that?
I do.
Your Honor, may I display this? Dr. Gerdes, does this strip reflect the final error that you described in your testimony yesterday?
Yes,
First of all, in terms of the date is May 25, 94.
correct.
The analyst is whom?
Harry Clan,
HK.
HK.
And this particular run consists of what?
A series of hairs that were analyzed, and they're reference hairs.
Now, by reference hairs, what do you mean?
They're from known individuals at the laboratory, so they are just presumably cleanly picked out of a person's head and then run.
The particular error that you've identified relates to what sample?
It's the 5th lane down.
Which is labeled under item number, there's dash 10,
Correct. And then number 27, S.
S. So this would be, well, let's just start off to the far left. It's actually number 5,
You are
as
damn
written in the
cute,
far
yes.
left-hand column.
Correct.
And then it's number 5 under tube number,
Correct.
and then dash 10
Correct.
under item number. I just want to make sure we're clear on which row.
Correct.
And then it's labeled number 27S.
Correct.
That is what type of sample?
That's a hair shaft from one of these references.
Is it the case that that's a hair shaft from the named, or what appears to be the first name of a person immediately above that sample?
That's correct.
What looks like Jerry B?
Yeah, it also says number 27 before that, so that's
Okay.
what you go by.
Now that sample above the one that we're interested in that says number 27 Jerry B, is that the
Right.
root of that hair shaft?
It is.
The sample that you have offered the opinion is an error relates to the shaft itself, correct?
Correct.
As far as the root of that hair is concerned, was that correctly called?
All right, so
Yes.
ma'am, why are you here on
Where is
behalf
the
of
DNA in
Mr.
that
Parks
hair?
instead of Mr.
It's found in
Parks?
the root.
It's found in the root only, isn't it?
That's correct.
Can hair shafts be typed for DNA?
Hair shafts are generally considered to be substrate controls if they're at a crime scene. They should not have DNA.
In other words, if a hair were sterilely removed from a person's hair and maintained in an absolute sterile condition and then typed using the system, there would be no DNA result, correct?
Correct.
As far as the root hair, and I'm talking about one above the sample that we're interested in, that typed as the same type as Jerry B, correct?
Correct.
Which is a 2,3.
Correct.
The hair shaft that you have offered the opinion is an error. Is it correct that the 1.2 allele was noted by the analyst,
Yes.
and there was no confirming analyst in this instance? At least none noted.
None noted.
So I was just clicking to get a window that was buried under another window up in front, and I clicked that window, and obviously, of course, why did the screen go black? Anyway, obviously, of course, the place that I clicked on was a link. Of course it was a link. And of course that page opened up, and of course started talking right away. Of course.
The 2 allele was noted on the shaft.
Why is my screen black?
3 was noted on the shaft.
Yes.
And is it the case that the week 3 is noted to be approximately the same intensity as the
Hold on, I don't know why it's black.
You have offered the opinion that that result is incorrect. Is that right?
That's correct.
As far as the presence of those alleles, you don't have any, or you're not rendering any conclusion that the alleles aren't present, are you?
I'm looking, guys.
As far as a hair shaft, isn't it correct?
I don't know why it went black, but there we go.
Correct that hair shafts, in fact, can have DNA on them.
If it's from a contaminant or from a crime scene, in this case it's from a contaminant, and the significant aspect of this particular item is that the 1.2 and 2 are the analyst is recording this according to intensity, are recorded as the type with this week 3, so that is an incorrect type.
Well, isn't it the case there shouldn't be any type on a hair shaft if it's sterilely collected and sterilely maintained?
That's true.
Hairs are in the real world, aren't they?
Yes, but generally on reference hairs, that's why you do these reference hairs, the shafts are clean.
If somebody else plucked a hair out, had trouble plucking it out or whatever, or had to deal with the hair manually, if enough of that went on, couldn't you detect the DNA of the person who pulled the hair?
It certainly is possible that in the manipulation of that item in the LAPD, by the way they manipulated it, they introduced foreign DNA there.
The fact that a hair shaft has DNA on it, that's not an error, is it?
In this particular case, I'd consider this an error because on reference hairs in particular, occasionally you will find a small amount of DNA on the shaft. Most likely that DNA is going to be the same type as the root. And the explanation for that is when you pull the hair out, there may be some epithelial cells that come across from that individual that would type. But you generally do not find any DNA there. And if you do find DNA there, it should match the person that hair came from. In this case, it doesn't. There's a 1.2 that's coming from somewhere else.
Dr. Gerdes, how many cases have you consulted with a defense attorney on that have involved hairs?
Probably maybe 20-25% of the cases I've done.
So about 7 or 8?
Something like that.
In those cases, did all the hair shafts type with no results on them?
Those were hairs that came from crime scenes, and it's not unusual to find either both the root and the shaft with the same type or foreign DNAs on those.
So it's your complaint and it's your opinion that this is an error because this is a hair shaft and we know who it came from.
That's not my complaint. I mean, it's an error because there's a 1.2 that doesn't make sense on a reference hair. If you look at reference hairs that are generally run in labs that use these kinds of standards, if you find any DNA, it's the type of the individual. You don't find DNA from someone else there, unless it's from a crime scene or it was collected somewhere where you might anticipate that to happen.
Is it your testimony, Dr. Gerdes, that an experienced DNA analyst would, if obtaining a result on a hair shaft, that necessarily is an error if it's from a known person?
This should be typing as a 2.3. It types as a 1.22.
Objection non-responsive, Your Honor.
Overruled. Ask the question again.
Dr. Gerdes, is it your testimony that an experienced forensic analyst who obtains a result such as this on a hair shaft from a known person would make a mistake in seeing that result?
Overruled.
That's my testimony based on the fact that this should be a 2.3 hair because this is a reference sample.
Dr. Gerdes, there shouldn't be anything on it, unless it was collected and kept in a sterile fashion, correct?
This is a typing error because of the fact that there's the introduction of a contaminant which creates the wrong dot intensities of the 1.22.
You're calling this a typing error?
Yes.
In other words, those alleles aren't there.
No, they're there, but they're there because of introduced contamination.
The 5 errors that you have discussed in your testimony for the last hour, perhaps, in your opinion, those are all errors by the Los Angeles Police Department laboratory?
They are.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our recess for the evening. Doctor, you can step down. Please remember all my admonitions to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves. Don't form any opinions about the case. Don't conduct any deliberations until the matter has been submitted to you. Don't communicate with anybody with regard to the case. As far as the jury is concerned, we'll stand in recess until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. All right, you all have a pleasant evening. See you tomorrow. All right, back on the record in the Simpson matter. Mr. Simpson is again present before the court with his counsel, Mr. Shapiro, Mr. Cochran, Mr. Douglas, Mr. Blazier, Mr. Thompson, Mr. Scheck. People are represented by Mr. Clark, Mr. Harmon, and Miss Clark, no relation. Jury is not present. Counsel, is there anything we need to take up before we conclude the cross-examination of Dr. Gerdes? Hearing nothing. Deputy Magnera, let's have the jury, please. All right, Dr. Gerdes, would you resume the witness stand, please? All right, good morning again, Doctor. Good morning. Doctor, sir, you were reminded you were still under oath, and Mr. Clark, you may continue with your cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Good morning, Dr. Gerdes.
Good morning.
Dr. Gerdes, day before yesterday, you suggested that there might have been cross-contamination on various evidence items in this case, correct?
Yes, I did.
I got little news. Little news. It looks like he's wearing the suit. That is the last suit that I see him in on the playlist. And this is August 4th, Part 1. Oops, oops, oops. And this is a full video. And then the next one is only 30 minutes. So tomorrow, we might get to the end of him. I say might because August 7th, I see OJ in the thumbnail. Then I see Sheck in the thumbnail. And then I see other people. I can't remember his name. I just can't remember his name, but it's not the person questioning him. Sheck is questioning him, right? Is Sheck questioning him? So he might be there August 7th. I'm not 1,000% sure. But then I don't see him anymore. So we are getting there. Tomorrow, probably the end.
And you
Probably.
suggested that cross-contamination that might have occurred during the extraction and evidence handling phase by Colin Yamauchi, correct?
I stated that it was consistent with that, yes.
Now, those are two different steps in the process, correct? That is, sample handling and DNA extraction.
Yes.
Those two acts or events take place in different rooms at the Los Angeles Police Department, at the Los Angeles Police Department Crime Laboratory.
They do.
Where does the sample handling take place?
That would be in the evidence handling room.
Evidence processing room?
Evidence processing room, yes.
Or EPR, as it's sometimes referred to in this case?
Yes.
DNA extraction takes place where?
That's in the serology laboratory.
Now, Dr. Gerdes, you would agree, wouldn't you, that there is a way by tracing the history of samples and how they are processed and handled to eliminate one or both of those possibilities of cross-contamination, whether in sample handling or extraction, by looking at the history of a particular evidence sample?
I'm not sure. No, I don't believe you can do that. I said that the two controls, to explain this, the two controls, the amplification water control, tends to be a control for introduction of contamination at that stage. And that particular control allows you to differentiate from that stage on the process of copying the DNA and anything preceding that. Now, really isn't a good control to differentiate the first two steps, which is sample handling and sample extraction, at least in the laboratory. Now, the substrate control would allow you theoretically to determine if there was DNA introduction earlier. If, for instance, the substrate controls were contaminated and all of the reagent blanks were clean around the same time, that would be definite indication that the source or the time at which the contamination occurred would be at the crime scene.
Dr. Gerdes, going back to my question, isn't there a way by tracing the history of a particular evidence sample to eliminate the possibility that cross-contamination occurred at one or both of those two stages?
No, the problem is that when you get to the final process, the final typing strip, if you see an indication of DNA on that strip, you have some idea as to what stage it might have been incorporated, but there's no proof. Because basically, for instance, the extraction blank, if it were contaminated, that basically tells you that something occurred in the handling in the laboratory or in the extraction process. But if the substrate control was contaminated, that could be either because it was contaminated at the crime scene, or the reagents that were added to that substrate control at the lab introduced DNA. So that
Question again.
Thank you. Dr. Gerdes, what I'm asking you is, isn't there a way by tracing the history of a sample that may eliminate one or both of those possibilities of cross-contamination during handling and or extraction?
you can analyze the sequence of events, if that's what you're getting at.
All right, so instead of the history of a sample, you prefer the term sequence of events.
Yes,
You're familiar with item number 48, one of the blood drops at Bundy, correct?
correct.
Describe for us the sequence of events with regard to item number 48.
Oh, okay. Item number 48, if I recall correctly, came in on the 13th of June, was handled at the processing room for drying. On the 14th of June, that particular item was processed at the same time as Mr. Simpson's reference sample and the Rockingham glove.
Well, objection, move to strike the last portion of the answer. Is that the entire history?
Yes, and the sequence in which that occurred was that Mr. Simpson's blood sample was handled first, and then the Rockingham glove, and then the item 52, and I don't remember the exact sequence, I can look it up, but the other Bundy drops after that.
Is that the entire sequence of events with respect to item number 48 and DNA testing?
There were also substrate controls that were processed at the same time.
Is
And I left, that were done at that time as far as the cuttings.
Is that the entire DNA history of item number 48?
No, at that point, that item was, and at this point I'll have to look at my notes.
All right, would it refresh your recollection to look at your notes?
Yes. Okay, on the 24th of June, the item 48 was mailed to Cellmark, and it was mailed at the same time as 4950, the reference samples from all three individuals, and number 7 and 12, which are blood drops from Rockingham, and item 47, 52, 56, and 78. Those items were mailed in a package from LAPD on 6/24/94 to Cellmark. Department of Justice item 48 was mailed to the Department of Justice on August 12th, 1994, and it was mailed at the same time as item number 6, which is a blood drop from the Rockingham driveway, and items 47, 49, and 50, as well as the reference samples from Mr. Simpson, Nicole Simpson, and Ron Goldman.
Is that the entire history of those samples as far as DNA testing is concerned?
They were then analyzed at those particular laboratories, and the substrate controls for those particular items for the Department of Justice,
Well, I'm
the
sorry, Your Honor.
substrate controls.
Objection. Motion to strike.
Sustained.
Dr. Gerdes, with respect
Sustained.
with respect to item number 48, is that the entire history as far as DNA testing is concerned?
Do you want me to go into the specific dates in which the DNA was analyzed, et cetera?
This question is vague in the form when he's talking about
Sustained.
history.
Rephrase the question.
Dr. Gerdes, with regard
It's
to
also speaking objection.
Dr. Gerdes, with regard to item number 48, you have described it being seized. How many swatches were seized, collected?
Well, I don't recall right off, and I apologize, but I only brought what I felt were critical items to, I mean, I have 2 file drawers full of data on this. I would have to look it up, and I don't have it with me.
Okay. As far as these 2 swatches, I'm sorry, rephrase that. I'd like you to assume that there were 2 swatches collected with regard to item number 48 at the crime scene.
Okay.
With regard to those swatches, what happened with,
That hypothetical in terms of what was collected at the
Sustained.
crime scene.
as far as what was collected from item number 48, how many swatches did in fact Colin Yamauchi deal with when he extracted DNA from it, from one or more of them?
I believe yeah, again, I don't have that record with me. I can look that up.
So you're unable to tell us today.
How many swatches? No.
All right. With regard to item number 48, is it your recollection, is it your testimony that all of the swatches were in fact processed by Mr. Yamauchi? And I'm referring to DNA extraction.
Yes.
Incidentally, Dr. Gerdes, do you believe the number of swatches that are collected with respect to a particular stain is important?
I believe it's important to keep track of how many there are, and it's important, it would be important if they are, the ideal situation would be to take those swatches and put them in separate bindles at the time of collection so that they're not handled. It's a-
Objection, move to strike non-responsive.
Or we'll cast
With-
again.
With regard to, Dr. Gerdes, these one or more swatches. It's your testimony Mr. Yamauchi extracted DNA from whatever was collected, whether it was one or if it was two, he extracted from both of them.
I'm sure he did not extract from all of the swatches that were collected. It's important to reserve some of that evidence, and I'm sure he did that.
Wouldn't it be very important to know, in terms of your opinions about cross-contamination, whether or not he in fact did extract DNA from some of them, all of them, or none of them?
It would be important in terms of whether he handled all of them.
Well, wouldn't it be extremely important in terms of the potential of cross-contamination for you to know exactly how many of those swatches he took DNA from?
It would be basically important in terms of, it's not important in terms of what I see on the typing results that have been reported. It is important in terms of the potential to go back at least to the stage in the lab and perhaps do further analysis. It still doesn't control for what happened before that, and it doesn't control for the fact that those swatches, it is my understanding that they were all handled, they were all packaged at the same time. It doesn't matter how many swatches there were there on that morning.
I do.
Or on the
Do you?
evening of June 13th.
Do you have a
when
lot
they
of
were
cars to get
packaged and
into
bindled.
today?
Those items were all handled at the same time. And so at this point, since I don't know exactly, or I can't be assured exactly of how those were handled and manipulated, at that point you have already have a suspicion, or may have a suspicion, as to the handling of the samples, because they were all handled. The swatches were all handled at that time. A subset of those may have been extracted at a later time, but because they were all handled together on that day, and because they were all handled together at the crime scene, you can't back this up all the way to the very, very beginning.
Dr. Gerdes, wouldn't it be extremely important to know, in terms of the potentials of cross-contamination, if Mr. Yamauchi extracted DNA from all of those swatches or only some of those swatches?
It would be important in terms of going back to those swatches and perhaps doing something with those again. But as far as the analysis of the data that I've looked at, it's not important to that. What I'm looking at is the typing result that he obtained from that, and the manipulation, not the extraction, but the manipulation of those swatches on that morning.
Is it your testimony that the steps in extracting DNA from a sample represent the exact same steps that are taken when one simply packages a sample for shipment to another laboratory?
No, it's my testimony that the manipulation process has the potential,
I love
whenever you
it.
manipulate these, it doesn't
It's
have to
close
be
to
DNA
Christmas,
extraction.
so that's
Your Honor.
good.
Sustained.
Move to strike.
Answer stricken.
Dr. Gerdes, what I'm asking you is, are the steps of extracting DNA from a swatch the same exact steps that are taken when a swatch is simply packaged for shipment to another laboratory?
The DNA extraction procedures are similar in all of those laboratories.
No, what I'm asking you, Dr. Gerdes, is, are the steps the same for, one, taking a sample and extracting DNA from it, and two, simply collecting a sample from a storage location and sending it to another laboratory?
The steps should be the same, and that includes handling that substrate control in parallel between each evidence item that's handled.
Dr. Gerdes, aren't there steps in extracting DNA that include adding reagents, for instance, to a swatch?
Yes,
Aren't there steps that include, for instance, adding Kelex to a swatch?
yes.
When one simply grabs a sample from storage and packages it for shipment to another laboratory, is Kelex added to it?
No, but the sample is handled. It's manipulated
Objection
with
non-responsive,
gloved hands.
Your Honor.
Sustained.
Move to strike the answer.
Answer is stricken.
Dr. Gerdes, when you pick a sample up from storage, put it in a box, and send it to another laboratory, you don't add any chemicals to it, do you?
No,
You don't add Kelex to it?
no,
You don't put it in a microcentrifuge and spin the sample around, do you?
no.
You just put the sample in a container and ship it.
That's true.
It's never exposed to the DNA extraction process, correct? Under the situation I've just described.
Under what you've described, that's true.
Now, I'd like to turn your attention to item number 50. Can you describe the history of that sample? And that's referring to item number 50, another blood drop at the crime scene.
Your Honor, I think that that is vague, term history.
Overruled. In the context of what we've just heard, I know exactly what's coming.
Item 50 was handled at that same, as far as manipulation of the swatches, on 6/13, if I recall. As far as bindling, then it was It was in the first set again. So it was in with that same set of initial LAPD DNA extractions on 6/14. And again, in the manipulation stage, that particular item, at the time of packaging, the order was Mr. Simpson's reference sample, the Rockingham glove, blood item 52, and then item 48 was one of the other four. I'm not sure which order, but it was one of those that, subsequent to that, as far as the manipulation and handling of that sample and bindling. Then on 6/14, it was one of the items that was set up for DNA extraction and then typed at LAPD, and it was mailed item 50, correct?
Yes.
It was mailed again on 6/24 to Cellmark. It was in that grouping that I mentioned earlier. And to the Department of Justice, it was mailed again on August 12th to the Department of Justice.
Can you tell, first of all, is that the entire history of that sample as far as DNA testing is concerned?
As far as its arrival at laboratories, of course, if you want to go into when it was extracted and so forth at each lab, that's not the entire history, but at that point then it was extracted and typed.
In other words, when these items were received by other laboratories, there were steps taken to type those samples.
Correct.
How many samples were collected with regard to item number 50?
How many swatches?
Correct, I'm sorry, swatches.
Again, I don't have that data sheet with me.
With regard to item number 50, wouldn't it be important to know how many of the swatches collected were extracted for DNA by Colin Yamauchi?
The form of the question.
Basically, the extraction process, again, is the second step in this procedure. So
Objection
what
to
is
the
really
strike, Your
critical
Honor.
is the manipulation.
Non-responsive.
Answer is stricken in its entirety. Jury is to disregard. Ask the question again.
Dr. Gerdes, listen to my question carefully. As far as the potential of cross-contamination of this item that you described on your direct testimony, wouldn't it be important to know if Colin Yamauchi extracted DNA from all the swatches that were received or just some of them?
It would be important as to the potential of contamination from that point on, but that does not control for the entire process of what happened in terms of manipulation and handling at the crime scene prior to that.
So your answer is it would be important.
It's one aspect.
Dr. Gerdes, with regard to item number 52, that is another blood drop at Bundy, correct?
Yes.
Can you describe for us the history of that item?
I believe I already have. It's in that same exact sequence.
All right. Can you tell us how many swatches were collected for item number 52?
I don't have that information with me.
May the witness have papers to refresh his recollection?
Do you have them to refresh his
course.
recollection?
Well, I'm sorry, Your Honor. I think
That's true.
I'm given the right to ask questions if I
I
may.
think, Your Honor,
Well, excuse
my
me,
objection to
objection,
this
objection.
process, he says he doesn't
Sit down.
recollect.
Sit down. Proceed.
You don't recall independently how many swatches were collected for item number 52, correct?
That's correct.
With regard to that particular item, RFLP results were obtained by Cellmark, correct?
That's correct.
With regard to the potential of cross-contamination that you described 2 days ago, wouldn't it be important to know how many swatches of the ones that were collected were extracted by Colin Yamauchi for DNA?
No.
So item 52 is different from item 50?
No, what I'm saying is that I tried to explain it, and that is that you basically doesn't matter how many swatches. Those swatches were all handled together. The number doesn't matter.
Dr. Gerdes, isn't it true some of those swatches were never processed to extract DNA by Colin Yamauchi?
They were all manipulated to be bindled.
Dr. Gerdes, isn't it true not all of those swatches were extracted for their DNA content by Mr. Yamauchi?
Again, it doesn't matter.
Objection, move to strike.
Ask the question for the third time.
Doctor.
Doctor, answer the question.
Yes.
Dr. Gerdes, isn't it true Colin Yamauchi did not extract DNA from all of those swatches from the Bundy blood drops?
Some of those were extracted from different individuals at different labs.
Colin Yamauchi didn't extract DNA from some of those samples, correct?
Correct.
Your Honor, I have a series of slides that I would ask to be marked as people's next in order.
564. Do you want the series as 564?
Thank you. And I've previously shown them to counsel, and I would ask that the first one be displayed.
Proceed.
calling your attention to, and can you see the
May
slide?
I step down, Your Honor?
Would it be easier from down here? Sure. Now, Dr. Gerdes, and for the record, Your Honor, this first slide that will be part of People's Exhibit 564, does the court wish them to be lettered individually?
Yes.
All right, then this would be 564A, entitled Replicate DQA Testing of Items 48, 50, 52. And for purposes of describing this slide A, Dr. Gerdes, does it basically have what appear to be two symbols for a house or building, the bottom of which is labeled EPR, and the notation to the left, 613 drawing?
Yes, I see that.
And then an arrow to an icon or symbol again labeled EPR, and to the left labeled 614 sampling.
That's what it says.
All right. Is it correct then that with regard to those three items, that they were in fact dried in the evidence processing room, or EPR, on June 13th? That drying process.
I don't get. There's no loan. I can't get a
And
loan.
it's also true that
I gotta pay for
on the
it.
next day, June 14th, in the same room, the evidence processing room, that those particular, or at least one of those particular swatches from those samples were sampled by Mr. Yamauchi.
That's true.
Is that consistent with your understanding of the events in this case?
That's my
I'll show everything
All right.
once it's
Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd like to display
Closer?
the slide, which would be
when I can.
And B, for the record, contains a symbol.
An additional icon marked serology.
Thank you. Now, Dr. Gerdes, isn't it correct that from June 14th, and in particular from that portion of the samples, from items 48, 50, and 52, which were sampled by Mr. Yamauchi, that they went into the serology section and DNA was extracted by Mr. Yamauchi?
That's correct, as I understand it.
It's your understanding also that what went from the evidence processing room to the serology room was not all of the swatches that were in fact collected on June 13th.
That's my understanding.
All right, then if we could have what will be labeled Exhibit C, Slide C, which has added another symbol labeled Parker Center.
Yes.
Is it also correct that as part of the DNA typing process of portions of some of the swatches, that following the extraction of DNA, that DNA that had been extracted by Mr. Yamauchi was taken to Parker Center for the amplification portion of the test?
That's true.
And in fact, that amplification portion also includes the development of the strips so that results can be read, right?
That's true.
And even photography as well to record those results so that they can be reviewed later.
That's true.
Is this, in fact, Slide C, an accurate representation of the chain of events for a portion of some of the swatches of items 48, 50, and 52?
It is.
All right, Slide D then, with the court's permission.
Yes.
What this slide has added, Dr. Gerdes, is two symbols to the right of the June 14th sampling EPR symbol, which read ECU and serology, correct?
That's what it says, yes.
And it is true, is it not, that portions of the remaining swatches not sampled, not extracted by Colin Yamauchi, were sent to the evidence control unit?
I believe that's true.
Portions of those remaining portions were returned to the serology unit for purposes of shipment. Isn't that correct?
On that date?
No. As far as the date, I don't want you to assume that it was on June 14th that the
Okay.
sampling date
At
occurred.
a later date, that's true.
All right. Then, Your Honor, I believe it would be Slide E. You described, Dr. Gerdes, how, and I believe you described the date of June 24th, that, again, portions of the original swatches were sent to Cellmark, correct?
That's correct.
We're talking 48, 50, and 52 still, correct?
And that would be true for items 40.
Portions as opposed to swatches.
Swatches.
All right, Dr. Gerdes, what was sent as far as items 48, 50, and 52 to Cellmark that you described, I believe, on June 24th?
They were swatches of those particular items.
Those were not swatches that Colin Yamauchi had extracted DNA from, were they?
They're not the same, the swatches he had extracted DNA from, no.
All right, then Slide F, Your Honor. And I believe it could be characterized as including an arrow down from the symbol Cellmark to a circle containing DOJ. Is that a fair description, Doctor?
Yes.
With regard to item number 52, it is correct, is it not, that a swatch or swatches were sent from Cellmark to the Department of Justice for testing, correct?
I believe that's true.
And in fact were ultimately typed by the Department of Justice.
Yes.
Dr. Gerdes, with regard to those samples and I'm referring to the swatches that were never extracted by Colin Yamauchi, they were never subjected to cross-contamination that you have described that can occur during the extraction of DNA process, correct?
They were not subjected to that at that third step in the process.
In other words, the swatches that went to Cellmark and the Department of Justice, and I'm referring now to the arrows that go right as well as to Cellmark and DOJ, they were never subjected to any of those steps by Colin Yamauchi to remove DNA.
Not at the extraction stage, but there were earlier stages.
Objection, move to strike the answer, Your Honor, non-responsive.
Sustained. Ask the question again.
Dr. Gerdes, isn't it true that what you described yesterday, actually day before yesterday, about what might have happened to those samples that went to Cellmark and DOJ, as far as DNA extraction cross-contamination, could not have happened?
I wouldn't state it. If you restrict it to only the extraction stage, that's true.
You've described the extraction stage as one of those stages that cross-contamination can occur, correct?
That's correct.
That could not have happened with the Cellmark and DOJ samples, correct?
Not at the extraction stage.
All right. Perhaps you could have a seat again, Doctor.
Real estate agent in 2008 in '08. Oof, It's like being a nurse in 2020.
None of these samples
Except-
went to simply one laboratory, correct?
Like
All of the
your mom
samples-
didn't almost die.
All of the samples went
Maybe
to
she did,
LAPD,
'cause of
went
the
to
stress.
LAPD first.
Well, objection, move to strike. Non-responsive.
Ask the question again.
Dr. Gerdes, isn't it true that none of these samples were typed by one laboratory only?
Of these three items you're talking about?
Correct.
They were all typed by more than one lab.
They were typed by 3 different laboratories, correct?
That's correct.
And they were typed using swatches that weren't even typed by LAPD as far as Cellmark and DOJ.
Could you repeat that?
Sure. As far as the swatches typed by Cellmark and the Department of Justice, those swatches weren't even typed by the Los Angeles Police Department, correct?
Those swatches?
The individual
items
swatches.
The items were, the swatches weren't.
Incidentally, as far as the results from items 48, 50, and 52, and I'm referring to the DNA results, they all could have come from Mr. Simpson, correct?
In terms of what is reported as results?
In
Yes.
terms of what was reported by the LAPD.
That's definitely true for item 52 for LAPD. That's true for item 50. And the reason I'm checking this is there were some with very faint C dots that they didn't call. Yes, that is true for that third item too.
So items 48, 50, and 52 all revealed DNA results by the Los Angeles Police Department consistent with Mr. Simpson.
Yes.
As far as Cellmark was concerned, they tested all 3 items as well, didn't they?
Yes,
Those results were all consistent with Mr. Simpson, correct?
they were.
As far as items 48, 50, and 52 by Gary Sims and the Department of Justice, those results were all consistent with Mr. Simpson, correct?
That's correct.
Now, you suggested, day before yesterday, that there might have been cross-contamination of certain evidence items other than 48 through 52, correct?
Yes.
Dr. Gerdes, isn't it true there are evidence items in this case that were never even touched by Colin Yamauchi?
The yes, that's true.
Isn't it true there are evidence items never even touched by Dennis Fong?
They're all going through the same laboratory.
Objection, non-responsive. Move to
Sustained.
strike.
Answer stricken.
There are some items, yes.
There are items never been touched by Dennis Fong. Isn't that correct?
That's true.
There are evidence samples that have never been touched by Andrea Mazzola.
That's true.
There are evidence items that have never even been typed
Tell
for
him I
PCR
said have a great
by
day
the
at
Los
school.
Angeles Police Department, but have been typed by Cellmark or the Department of Justice.
As far as typing, that's true.
As far as those samples that have not been touched by Colin Yamauchi, Dennis Fung, and Andrea Mazzola, tell us which samples are those.
again, I don't have my notes on that section of the chain of custody, and basically I'm basing that on what I recall from their testimony.
Okay, wouldn't it be important to know who touched certain items as far as collecting evidence, let's say, as far as the potential of cross-contamination?
It might be important in terms of tracing it to a single individual, but basically I didn't attempt to trace it to a single individual. It's traced to what the point is there is a from looking at any of those individuals and the record of the laboratory in terms of contamination, there is substantial risk, and I have no confidence.
Objection, move to strike, non-responsive. Call roll.
And so therefore I did not
No,
attempt.
That's the end of the answer.
Excuse me.
Next question.
Dr. Gerdes, as far as the potential of cross-contaminating another sample, it's different to extract DNA from it than it is to simply package it for shipment. In terms of this risk of contamination,
We've already asked that question.
All right. As far as these samples that were not processed by any of these individuals, and I've mentioned Colin Yamuchi, Dennis Fung, and Andrea Mazzola, correct?
Yes.
As far as all of those samples, you cannot recall now which samples those are. Is that right?
I have a clear, I know that the samples, which are the Bundy blood drops, the Rockingham glove, and Mr. Simpson's
I will,
reference
thank
sample
you.
were handled by Colin Yamuchi. I have a definite,
That's a good idea.
absolute positive, I'm positive of that. As far as other samples such as the sock and perhaps some of the other items, I don't have as clear of a recollection of those.
You discussed during your direct examination 3 items removed from the Bronco automobile, items number 303, 304, and 305. Do you recall that?
I do.
Can you describe for us the history of those items?
Yes, those were collected in June 14th, I believe. And those were processed and extracted on June 15th.
All right. I'm extracting us right now from this video. On December 1st. We're getting out of here, guys. We're running for the hills. Tomorrow will be the end. We only have... tomorrow will be the end of him, I think. I just feel like peeking at August 7th and seeing if he's there. But I'm not going to. I'm not. I'm going to go and get my stuff done. Thank you so much for coming out today, guys. I really, really appreciate it. I'll see you all again very soon, tomorrow morning. Have a great day, guys. Bye.